Welcome back to the Real Power Podcast. Today we've got a special guest, Mr. Randy Spurling. Randy, thank you for being here, brother.
You got it, man.
And we're going to get into Randy's story. He's a business mogul. He is a coach. He is a real estate investor, and I'm glad he's here. Start from the beginning. What got you into the whole world of business? Were you always an entrepreneur? How did it all start for you?
It's a story I'll never forget. I'm going to be graphic as hell right now.
Do it, man.
Okay. I needed to eat, and I had taken on a job that was very difficult, and I eventually worked my way up as a project manager at this job. And when I say I needed to eat, I had my first daughter at 21 years old, right? And I was already running budgets and trying to figure out how her mother could go to school and I could work and we could like run one car, right? We're talking like that kind of story. And the graphic part about the story was her mother did graduate nursing school, and I was like, okay, now how do we both work? And the job I was working was like 8 days a week. So when I told the owner of the company, I'm like, hey, she's going to work Saturday and Sunday, so I can put in 100 hours Monday through Friday. And he says, well, the first Saturday you miss, you'll be fired. After 5 years, right? And the graphic part is I was sitting in the bathroom because I answered the phone when he called. I answered the phone, but I was sitting pants down. I was like, okay. So when your stomach gurgled, I was in the right spot for that. But it was a blessing that I got fired. I actually never got fired. I took it like I got to figure something else out. But it was the move that made everything else move forward. I would have been their all-star had they kept me, because I would have just not known better or had to find another option. And when I thought, oh my gosh, now we're having a second child and I need a better job. And at the time I was supposed to go back to college, but I just didn't see that as an option. So I had done some work, I'd done some research. I'd had worked with my brother part-time. He owns a cleaning company. Mm-hmm. And my mind was moving 100 miles an hour on how to do things differently. And we're talking 23 years ago. I mean, I don't know if there was YouTube, podcasting. I mean, there was books.
Probably not.
And I was finger fucking books all the time, like read, highlight. But there just wasn't that like right now, like what we're doing. I didn't think.
Knowledge wasn't so accessible as it is today.
Now there's no excuse for anybody.
No,
right?
Agreed.
They can listen to this and get motivated. Mm-hmm. So as it would work out is that my brother owned a carpet cleaning company, and I'd work with him on the weekends. And I would say this phrase. I'm like, you should offer more services. As a carpet cleaner, you're only selling medium-sized T-shirts, and there's a lot of fat people, there's a lot of skinny people, a lot of tall people. Like, we should be offering services, right? And he's like, nah, that's not what I would do. And right at that same time, my daughter had allergies, and the allergist was like, have you ever thought about having your air dust cleaned? I was like, that's weird. We hired Isaac, which I don't know if you're going to say their name, but they did a great job. Mm-hmm. And now we have a great relationship with Isaac also, because they kind of send us their difficult work, but they're very capable. They did a great job, and instantly she saw a better outcome and less like allergies to our home, because the home that we had bought had a whole bunch of crap in the ductwork. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, I figured it out fast. What they charge, how long were there, I could do this. And so I did. I took the risk, and the math is pretty simple. I'll talk math anytime today.
Let's do it.
But it was $44,000 in service my first year with a $48,000 in expenses.
Okay.
I left the job at the time. What I was making was like $98,000 a year today.
Okay.
So I left $98,000 a year to go lose $4,000 a year.
Took a giant step backwards.
100%. Yep. But I also took a job at Perkins at night.
So you were hustling.
Oh, Marty and I were on a podcast once. He's like, tell me about your pancakes. I'm like, oh my God. Because I make the best pancakes at home, thanks to Perkins. But I took that risk, and I did it for like a year and a half. And I probably could have launched faster, but I really needed to be stable.
Because you have people to depend on you, right?
Yeah, dude. I get kids to feed. Like, I had to eat. That's always my phrase when I talk to people. Like, you have to eat. So second year in business, the numbers were right around 89,000 in sales. Now the costs were down to 41 because I had so much of that stuff paid for in the first year. That's why the costs were high. I put it all out. I bought van, equipment, stuff like that. And then I really had this like sort of like, again, no podcast, no mentor, no coaches yet. But I had this like inside feeling like I should just be doing it as good as we could. So I needed to get trained or certified. And every certification I went for, I was able to kind of link to another step to our business. So from carpet cleaning, a customer might call about a wet basement. we'd extract the water. But I'm like, let me figure out how to do this better, get certified. In that certification, you learn about mold, because if you don't dry it right, you get moldy basements. Let me get licensed in mold. From mold, turned into air quality. I'm like, aren't you doing duct cleaning? Okay. So now down the road, we have 15 certifications, 2 state licenses. Like, I have a national license, and I've written in 2 of my own 3-hour courses that are approved by New York State to teach. That's the fast forward in 22 years. So that business I started 22 years ago is on-the-spot cleaners. Today we run 12 service trucks daily. I have a full staff. I don't have to be in the office. And definitely people have asked me like, oh, how come your trucks, you don't have 30 trucks? You can do anything you want to do. But my biggest rule now in life is like, I have to follow my schedule, and my schedule is not work. It's life first, and work can fit in there. But you can't do that the first day. I think a lot of people that are maybe listening to these podcasts or Instagram, I call it like they want to be insta-rich. Shit takes time.
Takes a lot of time.
Takes a lot of work, man.
I'm in the middle of it right now. Yep.
Yeah, and you're going to lose some money. My sons right now are 16 and 18. And there's some like conversations that go on where like we go skiing a lot. I buy the first $200 in equipment, they pay for the rest. I can afford whatever, but I'm not. They need to lose their own money to learn about money, right? Because making money is pretty easy, but losing money will teach you more lessons. Needing money will teach you every lesson, you know?
Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah, that's a crazy story, and really shows you like you were willing to do whatever it took to make it happen. So you were working at nights while trying to build your business and just making it happen, really.
Yeah, and that's a reoccurring theme. So I did that in the very beginning for 2 years. I worked at Perkins as a cook while I ran the business during the day. And you have to be fast on your feet. People would say, hey, can you service 5 o'clock tonight or whatever day of the week? And I'd be like, no, but I could do Saturday morning. I didn't want to tell them I was a cook at Perkins. I wanted to tell them that I can do it. Later down the road, there's an article, I call them an article. There's a post on Facebook I wrote where there was a time when I had 3 service trucks in my warehouse. I had bought my first warehouse. I had 3 service trucks. And my warehouse was my first step into real estate investing.
Okay, yeah.
The reason I say that is because someone else, I was looking for like a 3-car garage, and he was like, hey, you should probably buy a bigger building than you need and rent the rest. You're going to grow into it. Now, I don't like that person, so I don't want to give him any credit. But he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong, because we grew into the building very quickly over years. But there was a time where that reoccurring night work and extra work came into play, where I was sitting on a milk crate in my warehouse, looking at my trucks. I'm cracking a beer, and I was just super proud. I'm like, wow, I got these trucks, and it's sunny out, like the doors are open, and it's 5:30 at night. And then it occurred to me, I'm like, well, these trucks aren't working at night. There's probably more work to do. Instead of trying to get 4 trucks on the road, why not use the trucks more? And so I did some research, and I found out, back to the restaurant game, overnight cleaning for restaurants. And very quickly I picked up P.F. Chang's, Champs, 3 Red Robins, staffed them all, didn't even need the service trucks, but it was a bitch.
So that was a big pivot moment for you, and was that big growth?
Big growth.
Yeah.
Instantly added on $60,000 in profit a year. That's 64. Huge. Actually, the number was like 62 or 64,000.
From those,
the number was
clients.
big, but the profit was 62,000. And whether you see it, read it, or I'll say it now, the reoccurring thing for me is I never spend the money that we make. I pay myself reasonable, and I reinvest. And before we got recording, I told you, I'm like, everybody needs to eat. You figure that number out and then reinvest every dollar over that number.
Yep.
The easy math nowadays with the cost of everything, let's just use $100,000. If you can grow something to $100,000, good for you. If you really want to grow everything over that $100,000, you better reinvest until it hits the number 3. Once you hit $300,000, you then should give yourself, this is a phrase I learned from a mentor later on a couple years ago, permission to be successful. At that point, if you have built a system and a process where you're making $300,000 a year, whether it's literally with your hands or with your mind or with the system for a little bit of all of it, at that point, shift to 35%. Pay yourself 35% and stick to it, because when you reinvest the rest of that, your money will always continue to grow. And you'll have room to pay for the mistakes, but it won't cut into your your food budget. Like
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that formula, and it's something I'm following as well. And I think for a lot of newer entrepreneurs, you start making good money, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm
insta rich.
I'm rich. I'm gonna increase my lifestyle, and then you realize, wait, I actually don't have that much money to continue growing my business, which got me to here in the first place. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap.
They absolutely do. And I saw it in your face. You're like, wait a minute. That wait a minute can be 3 months from now. And when you are going to sit at a table with me and other higher level mid-sized businesses, we're no Isaac, right?
Right. There's levels to this.
Right.
Yeah,
Isaac is huge, right? And they've done a great job with what they've done. But as a mid-sized big business, because I used to think we were a small business, and then I got kind of like called out by customers, like, you're not small.
Yeah.
Right? You got TV commercials and billboards, and okay, you're right. But that's me reinvesting. That's me taking care of the people that work for us, making sure they always have work, right? But when you get to that level and you sit with us at a table and you have a conversation, we're talking 3 to 5 years out, and we're paying attention to today. So when I myself couldn't afford something 2 months down the road, it takes time to get past that. And I think a lot of the insta-rich audience, they don't understand that. They don't understand that you're gonna have to work, man. You literally have to put so much work in.
Yeah, and I think Instagram and social media today it's great because you get all this free knowledge and information, but at the same time you see all these people, and it's like you're constantly seeing, oh, this is what entrepreneurship can get me, but you don't see behind the scenes of what that person did to get to that.
First time I heard that, I haven't said this in a long time. The first time I heard that one, a friend of mine is an attorney, and we go to breakfast. We used to go to breakfast once a week, but I'm not around New York that much, so we try to do it like every other week. And when Instagram really took off and Facebook was already out, he's like, you know what's awful? He read a study. You have 100,000, or let's say you have 1,000 friends list. Someone's always on vacation. So you think everybody's on vacation. That's not how it works. You're just seeing a 5-minute highlight reel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we're kind of guilty of that too. Like, I will share some lows that we've had, but you gotta be ultra cautious because who you're talking to. I don't really need the other business owners and real estate investors. They all know the lows. You don't want your customer to be like lack confidence because you had a loss.
Sure. Yeah.
So it is a highlight reel.
It's a balance.
Yeah, it's a highlight reel.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to, with my content too, I know I'm guilty of it. I show a lot of wins, and I try to just be vulnerable too, so that people see the human side of it and what you're going through. Because I think people connect to that a lot more too.
And I wish people would think a little bit because you just be not so fast about your delivery. It's okay to say, hey, we have lost money. There has definitely been times in business where I had 5 service trucks and only 3 employees. I mean, shit's not easy, right? Like, you don't see me posting on Instagram like, hey, so we have 2 trucks parked that each cost $85,000 and they haven't been to work in 2 months. We don't have enough work for them. You're not going to hear that.
Yeah.
You're not going to hear that.
Yeah, for sure.
You always got to have that happy, we can barely get to you a smile. But
Yeah.
the reality is, if anybody's been in business over 10 years, you've lost some money.
Yep.
Yep.
It's just part of the game, right?
Yep.
You started the business. What year was it when you started on the spot?
What year is it today? It's 2024.
It's 2024.
I think we're marketing. It's 22 years in business, so it would have been just a year after. Okay, so this is when you get old. This is what you do. It was the year anniversary of 2001 when I was listening to a replay of 9/11, but I was in a service truck. So it was around 2002 that I started full time.
Okay.
It's kind of hard. I'm very accurate about stuff sometimes. So I'm like, technically I was part-time for 6 months before that, but that's not a business.
Yeah. Yeah.
A business is when it's all in. And so it was right around 2002.
Okay. So you're over 2 decades.
That was my
now
first business. Yep.
Okay.
20 years ago when I first started, right? Everything was super tight budget-wise. And then you fast forward to today and you think about what we can give back to the community, what we can donate, what we can offer. There's been jobs that we've done for free just because the story hit my heart. Do you know what I mean? No one's ever, if someone reaches out to me with their hand out, I'm going to slap that hand away. But if I feel a vibe or my office sends me something, I'm like, oh my God, take care of them. And without thought, that's when you're on the right track. We have employees. We had an employee who on Sunday night called me from the emergency room because her daughter was in a car accident. It's like, oh my God, thank you for being separating your time to let us know you're not going to show up. I appreciate it. But we responded like within an hour, and we're like, you know what? You're very stressed and busy, so we're going to take some stress off. Tomorrow night, we're going to deliver dinner. It's on my wife and I. Brittany and I were just like, just take care of your daughter. We got dinner. 10 years ago, I could barely afford to go out to dinner. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like I'm preaching to anybody about how they're supposed to run their money. But for us, it feels very good to have some confidence to take care of your people.
Yeah, and just being able to be a human in those moments too.
Yeah,
It's
man.
got to feel.
Yeah.
So how involved are you in your business these days? Are you still in the operations? Like, are you totally scaled out? And how many hours a week are you working on?
That's a great question.
Do you even know?
Yeah, I do. I usually say about 5 to 10.
So that's a good spot to be.
That's a great spot to be, because that means I have great people that are running the rest. A lot of trust in our technicians, and significant trust and ownership in our project management team and our office staff. So 5 to 10 hours, none of it is hands-on. Back in the day, and this is probably for some of your newer businesses, if you're listening, you can take some notes. So in the beginning of business, my rule of thumb was, if I was working 40 hours a week, great. But in the beginning, I was only working 30 hours a week because I just didn't have the workflow. Once I hit 30 hours a week, my rule to you now is raise your prices. Once you hit 40 hours a week, raise your prices because you're going to take a slump. Once you back up to 40 hours a week, hire your first person. Because now you're at the right price point that you can afford to pay the person to do that physical job. And you have the fire underneath you to like, I got to make sure I pay them. So you're going to go out and sell it harder or close rates or close deals better. And so on and so forth, 2 or 3 trucks or 2 or 3 people in your team that do your photo shoots, 2 or 3 people who are finding deals and helping you with your rehabs. Once you get to everyone who hits 40 hours a week, my rule of thumb at that point was office staff. And anything at that point, at minimum 1 office and 3 people underneath you. If you find yourself putting in 20 hours or more in your business, hire the next person. By the time you train them and you're nervous to pay them, you will have grown the business to fulfill that position. And we grow 1 service truck a year, but at some point I wasn't the guy growing the truck with them anymore. I was implementing people on my team to be like, you need to partner with this person for 6 months to train them, and I'll invest in their salary, that truck, the marketing to get them there. And I invested in my team to do that. So the rule is always like, if you're putting in 20 hours or more after you have sort of a stabilized business, you need to hire more.
I think that's such a good gold nugget right there, because so many, I feel like, and myself included, you don't really know if it is the right time to hire, and having a systematic, like tracking your time, like what are you spending time on? Are you overloaded? Knowing those points of when it's smart to hire and when you just got to grind out a little bit longer and then hire.
So there's something, all right, so go back to people taking notes. Take these notes. Let's say you're already at that level where you're thinking about your next hire, whether that's person number 4 or 10, doesn't matter. If you or yourself are putting in 20 hours a week I'm going to get into that in a second. So let's say you or yourself, before you hire the person at 20 hours a week, raise your prices. That will tell you 2 things. Does the market think you're too good for yourself and you'll slow down? Or you may not even slow down. You'll be like, oh man, I was way behind on the market share on price points. So I raised my price at 20 hours. Now I'm at 30 hours. Definitely can afford somebody. Okay. Yep. As you really elevate your business and you start to think a little higher on the growth strategy, you say to yourself, no longer is it you are putting in 20 hours a week and you need to replace yourself. You start to look at your team and you're like, wait a minute. If you have 7 people working overtime, 5 hours each, that's 35 hours of overtime. A time and a half is like, I wish I'd use an easy number to do the math right now. Probably like 50 hours, whatever, 47 and a half. Definitely hire another person because you, number one, don't want to burn your people out. And number 2, you're already paying that money out. With an extra person on your team, you can operate more efficiently. So knowing your numbers is super key in business and paying attention. So when I'm 5 or 10 hours a week in on-the-spot cleaners, it's not like I'm just at the shop or office having a coffee. I'm like dashboards, looking at all the operations at a high level. And one of the jobs I enjoy most is the social media. I really enjoy it. We've tried to hire that out. And we do hire out some photography or video and things like that. But man, just being clever or current sometimes just relies on the inside information. And I like that job.
Totally agree.
I like that job.
Totally agree. We've tried it too. We've tried to like systematize our social and like posting. It's like, Nothing compares to just like us having a pulse on our social media
100%.
and actually like the marketing stuff we're putting out. I agree with that.
And here's something funny too. Path less chosen, right? Everybody knows that phrase or whatever it is. Everybody's want to run to AI, stay connected to people. What I saw in the last 22 years in business, a couple ups and downs, but every time my business grew was I took a path less chosen. So in 2001, 2008 housing market, and then also in 2020, the current, like I remember when the news came out in 2008 and 401ks and housing market crash and like, I mean, it was all over people's TV channels when we're in their houses. 2020, same thing. Like what's going to happen? We don't know. So what happened in those two scenarios is that most businesses panicked and tightened their budgets.
Yeah.
I doubled.
Double
everything. So immediately keep your team, if they're worth keeping, pay them a little bit more. I reached out to, in 2020, I reached out to all of our advertisers. Said, what's the temperature? And they're like, man, people are pulling out. It's like, they're scared. It's okay, good. Double my reach, but I want a discount. And how do I help you? Add value. How do I help you? So my person at, whether they're the buyer at the TV channel or the direct mailer or whatever they do for us as their job, I'd say, I don't want to just call you now and give you 6 months of service buying your marketing. How about you sell it every 2 weeks so your boss looks at you like, holy shit, you're kicking ass.
This is a win-win.
And they looked at me, they're like, Randy, who thinks like that? I'm like, well, I need you to stay alive. You know what I mean? I'm like, I need you here. I go, but and we doubled our reach with a discount. We expected a discount, but not for free. And we have never scaled back when we doubled. So even though we doubled our reach, we didn't just do it for a couple months. We're talking years.
That's brilliant, dude. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful.
Yeah,
and
man.
that was a perfect
Just go
example
after
of everyone's pulling back. And it's like, no, we're going for it.
Going for it. Yep.
So you're about 5 to 10 hours a week in your business right now. Do you ever see yourself completely scaled out of it? Or will you always, is it like your baby and you just always want to have
That's
a little?
That's a great question. Currently today, and I use this a lot, today how I feel, because that could change tomorrow. I've been offered to sell the cleaning company, or to sell it to people. And only that conversation came up because I bought and sold other companies, and then that kind of comes together. I love that company, man. I love what we do. It sounds corny, but let's get into another set of notes for people. What we do at the cleaning company, duct cleaning and mold, is a task. What I do is run a business.
Yeah.
What I do in real estate investing, the task used to be buying and rehabbing houses. At one point, I had 33 houses and 7 warehouses. And we actually bought and renovated an entire RV park. Those are tasks. What it is running a business. And anybody who's in real estate investing and real estate agents, I tell them all the time, I teach that class, business and scaling. You're running a business. I was going to drop an F-bomb.
No, you can.
Oh, all right. Well, you're running a fucking business, right? If you look at it like running a business, why would you ever stop? It's such a great job to have to oversee these tasks. I don't care if you're a window installer, photography. It's running the business. It's the task, right? So, and why I've been able to buy or sell or start other businesses is we have a handbook. It's not a handbook that my technicians get. It's the owner's handbook. It's
came out of here.
Right. And I call it tools, training, and technology. You come into a business and this is not me, this is Cody Sanchez, right? I follow her on Instagram. You go into a tired business, like an HVAC company I had purchased a few years back. Tools, training, technology, and I brought in talent, a bunch of T's, right? And the talent was a good friend of mine, David Jocklone, who the operation agreement was, you're going to come with me because I don't even know how to spell HVAC. But I can buy this business from this old guy and we can turn it around. And we successfully did. And in about 3 to 5 years was the plan. In 3.5 years, I took a buyout. And then later on, another business friend and I, Anthony Valerio, we started storm basement waterproofing. Same thing. Tools, training, technology. What do we do different? I'll tell you what we do different. When we jackhammer your basement for waterproofing, we have, quite honestly, the most expensive equipment because we have jackhammers with HEPA filters that trap all the dust. How do I know that? Because in my other business, we come in behind those guys and clean the house. So like, we're not going to do that, and we're going to sell that. We're going to turn off the furnace so it doesn't circulate the dust. We're going to put in air exchanges and all this containment to control the cleanup so that people are confident to say, yeah, you should use them, not, no, they blew dust all over my closet. Clothes 2 stories up, So the packet and the owner's manual and that handbook is tools, training, technology, and talent. And if you follow those guidelines and you have the stomach to invest the money in weight, it's exciting. But it's not quick. Nothing's quick.
Nothing's quick.
And nothing's easy, man. It's work. So out of those 5 to 10 hours on the clean company, high level thinking, high level activity, and then giving people the permission to do what they're supposed to do for you.
Trusting.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I don't push on people.
I've struggled with that too. And like when I first started and it was just me out shooting houses, I'm like, my clients want me. That's what they're paying for. And that was just a limiting belief in my head. And my first hire was my brother. And it took me a while to even trust him to be able to do the same quality and level of service that I was able to provide. And then as soon as I realized that, and now he's levels above any creative skills that he's just on a different level.
That's the weird thing that happens to people.
And now I realize as soon as he was able to do that, I'm like, well, shit. That means anyone else that I hire, I can train to do the same thing. And
or
once
sometimes
you get over
hire that talent in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you something. There were times when I was growing and I was talking to people who were in my industry and who weren't growing, and their holdback is this whole like, wow, there's no good help. Well, you can develop people.
There's 7 billion people in the world.
You can develop some people, right? I mean, what we do, the tasks are pretty easy.
Yeah.
I'm not asking them to run the business,
Yeah.
right? I'm asking them to be a part of the team. And they're like, wow, I do 110%. Great. I'm going to tell you right now, we do 85%. Sounds weird to say that, but the system that we have, our 85% is probably better than a lot of the owner-operators who don't know shit about running a business. They don't get certifications. They're doing 110% of what they know. That doesn't mean anything in the competitive market.
Yep. When
we have more licenses and certifications, and our people aren't doing 85%. But do you know what I mean? Like in the beginning, you have to be okay with a little bit of like, they're not going to do 100 of what I do.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Yep.
They're still going to exceed the expectation. And then you hire some talent that comes in, you're like, wow, you do a better job than I do. So like the one holdback I had was hiring Becky for bookkeeping. And cause I don't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. I kind of felt like I don't want really anybody to see my numbers. Like, cause you have this imaginary competition with somebody you don't even know. And you're like, well, they must be making way more money. It doesn't matter. The outsource companies, whether you're using a bookkeeper or a marketer or something like that, it doesn't matter. I don't know how to write a spreadsheet. That's their job. And then they do it better than I do. And that lets me do what I do. Right. And again, touch base on the personal touch on social media. Like, I like that job. I like it. It's good to be relative, and again, the path less traveled. Everybody's going to go to AI. I'm still going to shake hands, kiss babies, drop stuff out, personal,
Yep.
Personal touch.
100%.
There was a time with COVID, we were talking earlier when we were walking up the stairs here, and you were like, hey, you launched this 3D stuff and it worked out. Timing was perfect for you, but you also went and worked. For us, it was a little bit of a gap. Like, oh my gosh, we're not being able to do these coffee meetups and meet real estate agents or meet home inspectors or meet people that are kind of like our funnel, right? Lead funnel. And then we just decided to push the social media heavy and and then as soon as it was in person again, I wrote classes that were like, people want to see people. It's okay to go to coffee again,
Yeah.
To do both.
Yeah, no, and that was perfect because what's everyone doing when you can't go anywhere? They're right on their phone and they're scrolling, and you hit that hard and 100%, man.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go. Let's do a timeline because I know it gets all over the place.
Yeah.
So, 22 years ago, I started On the Spot Cleaners. Very quickly, I hate to admit this, but I read a lot of books and I watched a lot of I don't care about politics. I watched CNBC because they had like these TV shows on money and greed, American greed, and like financial forensics and all this stuff. And I was listening to that. So I like that stuff. And before podcasts and before YouTube and all these Instagram videos or shorts, I put in the time to read a lot of books. And I made a lot of notes, and I created like my own mental map on money and what I wanted. And a lot of what I was seeing was real estate investing. So everybody thinks, oh, let's get into real estate investing. Let's be passive. Let's not work. Let's not do that, right? So very quickly, probably year 5, so 17 years ago, I started buying rental properties. I bought 2 in my first deal was a duplex and a single from the same seller. Here's a lesson. Oh my God, I remember this. I bought the duplex and a single, And I was so eager and excited that I got permission to go on the property before closing and owning.
Okay.
Install new windows, paint, carpet, flooring, get it ready to go. So when we close, I'm rented. Go to closing, but I get a call before closing. You got to bring $5,000 cash or else we're not closing. We know this is illegal. We know you can't do anything about it, but you already did all the work and we could keep the house. Oh, shit. Very expensive lesson. So now right away, we're like, okay, we don't touch the property until we own it.
You're just excited, man.
I was excited, man. I was just, I read all the books. Back then, it was like HGTV had a bunch of these, like, not fix or flip it $400,000 houses. They had like a market like Rochester, 50,000. It was like something in Texas they were doing. So that was kind of a cool show because it motivated me into that. And then a lot of the books I was reading on real estate investing, business planning, and in those books they talk about how real estate they supported. So they would make their money in their business and reinvest it in real estate. Yep. I was like, I can do that. But like anything else, all success takes work. So to be successful in the cleaning company, you got to put in the work. To be able to have time to invest in real estate, I had to have build a team in the cleaning company and then put in the work in the real estate and then build a team there. And I know this is a phrase people can relate to, the shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, so I was just going to bring that up. Yep.
Right? So I made that mistake a few times. I couldn't get my driveway sealed fast enough, so I started a seal coating company. What an idiot. What an idiot. That was the worst summer of my life because I couldn't staff it. It was just relating to the weather and all this other crap. You know, you couldn't scale it the way I thought I could scale everything else I have. So I was like, what am I doing? So I sold that off. But the real estate investing, the first year was the duplex and the single. And even though I lost the $5,000, what I really gained out of it was I bought it before BRRRR was a method, before BRRRR was like super popular. I did it, right? Like I bought it, I fixed it, I got fucked in the $5,000, I closed, I filled it with tenants, and then I refinanced it. I was really only out $1,000.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit. I basically now after 6 months have 3 units for $1,000. So I did 7 the next year. Like I was like on it, but I didn't do anything until I closed, but I was on it to a point to where I got to 33 properties. And then my wife and I, we used to say, well, we still do. We say vacations make you money. Why? You have time to sit down, kind of digest.
Love that. I've never heard that before. It's so true.
I actually think Brittany came up with that one. Vacations make us money because she would see after vacation that I was relaxed.
Yes.
I read some more. I was kind of re-energized. In a book I had, there's 2 books in a row that had the same theme, which is Think Big, Grow Rich, Think Big, you know, that kind of concept. And this is before Matt really got on that, which he does a great job with that, Matt Jordan, like the whole like get big, grow big stuff. Yep. And this was like 12 years ago. So I was like, okay, if we're going to think big, how do we do it? So we started really like trying to either find 3 units and 40 units. Okay, that worked out. And then it hit us. We looked and found a 40 unit. We were looking at mobile home parks or a motel or apartment complex. And this thing came up under 40 units. It turned out to be the RV park that we purchased. Now that one purchase, everybody says, oh, what's that one deal? The problem is the one deal is never there until you've put in a lot of work.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
You can't just come out of high school one day and be like, I bought an RV park and now I'm retired the rest of my life. Like, okay, I wish it was years down the road, but the RV park is it. We have a 40-unit RV park. I don't really care if the people there are listening because we add value. We keep it clean. We have full services. We have tree maintenance. We have landscapers.
Providing a great service.
Great service. 6-month contract. We clear 6 figures.
One deal.
And I go 4 times a year to say hi. Now, in the beginning, I put in the work. The first 3 years, we were there all the time trying to figure it out and navigate it. And half the park was seasonals, which means like for the full 6 months. The other half were like short terms. And my wife, she was like, oh, if we run the numbers, the short terms make us $18,000 more a year because they pay more per night. What you're going to hear from me as a old person now is that it's about your time. And yes, the $18,000 is great, but
is it worth the energy?
Is it worth the time of being there on Tuesday night till 10 o'clock when somebody finally pulls their camper in, right? Or when the couple is arguing and the kids are all over throwing rocks at cars? Like, you don't want those. You don't want that headache. So I remember saying to myself, and I learned this in business a long time ago with pricing strategies, you don't want to mutiny, right? So you don't want to go in and say, hey, everybody, the prices are up, because then you're going to have everybody leave. So what I did with the half of the park that was making me $18,000 or more a year, I was like, well, there's some data. There's literally data on my yellow legal pad. Like, we're not talking spreadsheets. We're talking like me writing shit down. But the data was there in my brain that said, if half the park is sold out and I turn people away, why not just give them a higher price and see what they say? So little at a time, for like a few years at a time, I'd be like, let's just try to fill 5 at a high price. Now we're all of it at that high price on a waiting list. But it took it took me like 3 to 5 years to get that kind of like momentum and find the price and market it right.
Sure.
It's a dream.
Dude, I love that, man.
But you got to pay attention and you got to work. And work doesn't always mean, this is my favorite phrase, work doesn't always mean carrying the shovel. In the beginning, when you're broke, you're definitely carrying the shovel, you're running the phones, you're running the paperwork. But at some point, you pick the work you like best. And to me, it's paying attention.
Yeah. Where's that park located? Is it local?
Bloomfield, New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, no. It's like 9 minutes from our house. We had no idea it existed.
Dude.
We rode in on a motorcycle. My beard was monstrous. Tattoos. We both carried guns. 5 minutes in, we were deathly afraid. Like, this place is a shithole. It was a dump. But then after we took it over that October, I put $115,000 in renovations, did all the work myself. So that's a lot. Like a lot of gravel, a lot of power, water, new pavilion. People would pull in the first year and they thought it was a brand new facility. I'm like, no, I just worked my ass off this winter.
Yeah.
Even the town. I mean, we had a lot of difficulties because we were running fast and I didn't know to ask certain questions. It's my fault. But we fixed it. Questions like, you can't have a giant excavator here and you can't move this dirt from that pile to this pile because it's soil that's not. I'm like, listen, that excavator is a friend of mine that owns a farm and I'm removing dead trees. And like, oh, well, you're fine. But it was just the visuals of us moving too quick.
Sure.
But even the town was like, wow, you really turned this property around, to a point where I earned a reputation that like the heating company that I owned with my partner at the time, we were doing 60 units at a complex that was being built in that town. And when we showed up, the town was like, oh, if you're here, these guys will be good.
You have a reputation.
These guys will be good if you're here. I'm like, I'm not overseeing their project. We're just doing the furnaces. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is a great property, and my sons have come up through it. My daughter's a little older, so they're 26 and 21. They didn't really have that experience at that time. They had the experience, my 26-year-old, she had the experience of going into the hood with me, cutting open window boxes, me installing windows on a Saturday and Sunday while her mom was at work. Like, she remembers it. And she actually bought her first duplex at like 24 so that she could not need as much income while she finishes grad school.
Lived in one unit and
lived in one, rented the.
That's what I did.
Yep. And then the plan maybe for her is that when she graduates in 2 more years, sell the house off, pay her student loans off.
I love that.
Yeah, whatever it works. You don't have to build an empire. Sometimes you just use it as a tool, right? I need this to do this.
Everyone's different. Yeah.
Yep.
So mobile home parks, do you see yourself continuing to purchase those, or is that the only one and done?
No, I'll tell you the timeline again. So On the Spot Cleaners 22 years ago, started real estate investing 17 years ago, and did the whole ones and twos, and then learned bigger RV park. And at one point, again, if you can factor a $100,000 profit, your mind thinks, well, 10 RV parks, I'll make $1 million a year. But the reality is, it's a lot of work.
10 times the work.
10 times the work. And it's not impossible. It's just not what I want to do.
Sure.
So for me, every time I've gone to another investment strategy or business, I always come back to the cleaning company. Every time I come back, it does better. And I'm like, you know what? How about I just pay attention to what I have? You know what I mean? So we keep the cleaning company. I like to say that Anthony and I are invested partners in the waterproofing company because we don't make day to day. We only read a monthly report on that business. And we trust that team. And Dave Crawford that works there is just phenomenal. He really takes a lot of ownership personally. And then, as you can tell, I don't want to say I can't sit still because I have a lot of hobbies, but my mind can't sit still when it comes to money. So selling the properties, selling the heating and cooling company, and moving the excess profits that you're not reinvesting. The Spurling Group was created, which allows my wife to be an independent agent on her own brokerage, and kind of run things the way that fit our lifestyle. And then I am a different Spurling Group. So she's Spurling Group Real Estate, and I'm Spurling Group. And my entity is basically coaching, consulting, and private lending. So I still get super pumped up about people's real estate deals, but on this side, we're lending. And we're particular. We're only lending to people who... I'm going to answer this question differently, or I'm going to say this differently. My son at 15 is like, how do you know when the right person you lend to? How do you know they're the right person to lend to? And I said, well, I'm going to call them out because I like them a lot, these two guys. Two out of a handful of guys that we use, but we like a lot, are Don Rodriguez and Brandon Rizzo. I love seeing their deals if they ask us to work with them because they don't pick up a paintbrush. That's what I told my son.
They're running a business.
They're running a damn business. You do not lend to the guy who's like, I have a full-time job and I think I can do this on the side. I know how to do all this stuff myself. Good for you. I'm not taking that risk. Somebody else can take that risk. I invest, not risk. I invest in guys who run businesses. And then somehow, some way, we also have we almost become friends, even though whatever, lifestyle choices can be different, because I want to see them be successful too. Let's be serious. If they're successful, they're going to borrow again and they're going to grow their business and maybe need more than that later on. I'm not looking for that investment, but it's a good like kind of back and forth. It doesn't have to be we're at the top and you're down here. It's we're here. We're peers.
Yes.
You just have a different task.
Yes.
Your task is rehabbing. My task is lending, but we're both business owners. And so that's what I told my son. I'm like, he doesn't pick up a paintbrush. And he knew right away. He's like, okay. Now he can. Yeah. I mean, by all means, jump in and paint.
As soon as he picks it up, you're done.
You're done. Give me the money back. But it's just that concept of like working with business owners. And by all means, Dom and Brandon, not only are they growing businesses and operating as business owners, they're, without even saying so or me asking, you can see it. They're also giving back and mentoring other people. And that's always a sign of like somebody who's like willing to learn more if they're giving out the information to other people.
100%.
Because we don't know it all, right?
Yep.
So years ago at 25, I thought I knew it all. At 35, I'm like, wow, I didn't know shit. Haha. But by 45, I was like, I still don't know shit. And that's a different story. There's so much to learn.
There is. And I think for me, staying in the student mindset is something, as soon as I start to get a little too high on myself and think all high and mighty, I'm like, hold on a second, bring it back down. You don't know shit. You've learned a little bit, but there's, like you said, there's so much to learn from and so many people to learn from and so many different perspectives. And I just try to take it all in. And I think of myself as like a filter. And what resonates with me, I take that advice, and everything else I leave. Yeah. And
you don't have to do it exactly how everybody else has done it. And you don't have to come up with something brand new either, right? Any business that we have is not the first thing that you've ever heard of.
Don't reinvent the wheel. Yeah. This has been awesome, man. Well, there's a lot of gold nuggets for people, and just your experiences and what you've learned is super valuable. So thank you. Goals for the future. I know it seems like you've got life set up pretty good right now.
Yeah, but remember, I don't know everything yet.
You don't know everything.
Yeah.
So is there any, like, besides just living life and going on vacations, is there any like big
it's not going on vacation. It's living life.
Living life.
I know it sounds really strange.
Vacations is part of it.
We don't call them vacations, which is a real weird thing.
What do you call them?
We're just living. We're working.
You're just living life.
Yeah, just living life. So if I can work like that, I'll work forever.
Yeah.
Vacations to me are like you're checked out, right? Your email's off, your phone's off, you're on vacation.
Yep.
When I'm mountain biking in Sedona, my AirPods are in it, and if I have to catch an email, I will pull over and run that email. Like people are like, oh, well, you got to separate stuff. I don't give a shit what you say. I'm biking in Sedona, and if somebody needs me, I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
Right? And if I'm skiing in Colorado, my sons and I were on a gondola, and I'm responding to Yakavangelo, right? He's sending me some contract. I'm signing it real quick.
Yep.
I'm not on vacation. I'm just working from somewhere different, and I love that work, man.
Yeah. I think that's a good spot to be in. And do you see yourself just continuing to roll that way, or is there, because like you said, you feel like you always want to continue working and doing something, right? Because I feel like a lot of people think about retirement and they're like, oh, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to lay on a beach. But I think as human beings, we're kind of wired to
it's
not
interesting,
be able to,
man. I feel like you could have a whole podcast just on this concept. I've often been friends with older people because I look for their advice and their guidance,
Me
right?
too.
Or their experience. And I don't have to do it the way they've done it, but I just want to hear what they did. But at 47 years old, the stats are, I think I traveled 26 weeks or 28 weeks a year. And when I set my calendar to travel, I don't have to look at my calendar to see what else. It goes first. Because I know I'll still respond to emails and phone calls. I know there's a few times a week where I've scheduled phone calls with my team or other investors, but that can happen anywhere. So I just don't see why I would stop that. Now, 10 years from now, I'm going to listen to this and be like, what an idiot. You know what I mean? But the reality is I really enjoy it and I like it. And there are plenty of times when I've thought to myself, okay, you could pluck, let's say I have 4 ongoing streams of revenue right now. I could pluck 1, 2, or 1 and 2, or 3 and 1. I could pick them and just do that and never work again. But the way I grew up, I have a fear of running out of money.
Sure.
So I don't want to spend it. I want to reinvest it and grow it past the point so that I can kind of live in today and be comfortable. And it's not like I was beat up with bags of money as a kid. It's like, money's bad. It's just my brother, I happened to grow up in foster care and then eventually into like an extended family with aunt and grandmother. And, things are tight and everybody's insecure. I don't care what income level you grew up in, you're sort of insecure growing up anyway. But that did formulate some of the finances where I'm like, I don't want to run out of money and I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail the family and the friends and now the investors and now the employees. Like, I don't wear it like it's a negative stress. I take it like it's a positive role. I'm able to be the captain of this ship and it's great that we can all be on this together. But I don't want to run out.
Yeah.
So I feel that motivation to kind of like, this is still exciting and that's what I want to do.
Any books, podcasts, resources that any one book that's really had a huge impact on your life?
Yeah, no. So one book, no, because
just like
the conversations. Yeah, you can get into somebody and be like, I like what you said. I don't agree with this and that. So you take what you get from each conversation, podcast, and book. But by all means, I would tell people early on, The Millionaire Next Door was a decent book, and it spoke to me because it was in the similar mindset. Like, build a business, don't live on all your money. But I also don't want to live broke, right? So then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is like build businesses and build passive. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But then through hard work, I realized nothing's passive. But I do still recommend those books. So The Millionaire Next Door, and then Rich Dad, Poor Dad, everybody has always said. And then there's a few books I like again, way before politics were involved. I'm sure Trump didn't even write it, but he has a book on Think Big. There's another book, Think Big, Grow Rich, in that series. There's a few more that are like Get Rich with Rentals. Take rentals as a task and implement what you do. Read that book like Get Rich with Photography. Get Rich with Installing Windows. If you read that book and replace the words with rentals with what your task of business ownership is, that book is gold. But if you read it as just rentals, you might get distracted from what you're already doing and it won't be as effective.
Yep.
Yeah. And I would say a few of the Keller Williams books are really good too, like The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, Real Estate Agent.
I've heard that from people.
Yeah, because they're really good in building systems and businesses. And as a plug, I work with all real estate agents at every brokerage, blah, 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 blah. But like they wrote really good books and really good processes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Any parting words of wisdom for our audience? Just one thing. If someone's in your shoes 20 plus years ago and they're looking to start their first business, what do you got for them?
I've only ever gotten better with coaches and experience. So I don't particularly want to coach anybody one-on-one. My time is more valuable coaching my team. So don't reach out to me. But by all means, speak to people and have an open mind and be willing to put in the hard work. So most recently, for years, I was very good at having time for myself, mountain biking, skiing, independent stuff. Most recently, I joined like volleyball, beach volleyball in Florida. I suck, so I hired a coach. I'm not as bad. But the lesson there is I paid someone to show me what I don't know. And then I willingly took the risk to play with people who are much better than I am, who don't know that they're co-coaching me because I'm learning from them as I'm next to them. And that's the process in every business, right? Find the certifications, find the licenses, find the education, find the coaches, and then go be around those people.
100%.
And put in the work, man.
And I'm doing that too. I invested in a couple of coaching groups and it's completely changed my business.
Crazy, dude. And someone told me like year 9 and I was like, you guys are dorks. This is a whole nother thing too. I thought my ego had definitely cost me a ton of money over the years because I was also, it's like two-handed. I'll tell you to go around the people that you want to learn from, but also don't feel bad to grow out of those groups. I myself was around people in my industry getting certified. And, you're away for 4 days in Vegas or somewhere else, and you're all kind of having beers and talking, shooting shit, and so-and-so's doing $80,000 a year, and you're thinking to yourself, I make $180,000 a year. I must have already made it. The ceiling
Yes.
doesn't exist, but you think you have it because you're better than the guy you just talked to. And that ego problem I had was like, oh, well, then I might as well get into another business because I've already maxed this one out. Bullshit.
Yep.
Bullshit.
Yep.
And that happened to me twice in my career. So once was about the 180 mark in a conversation at a certification school where I was like, oh, I'm better than all these guys. That's a fault. Don't think like that. Mm-hmm. And then later on, I was in a different style seminar for like ownership and, growth. And I was sitting next to doctors and they're making $300 a year. And I'm like, these fuckers. I'm like, they spent all that money and education. They got to go to work. I don't. Again, ego. I thought I was better than them because I could make that money and not do what they do. Mm-hmm. Get that shit out of your head.
Yep.
There's a few things unlimited out there, and it's whatever you want, really, whatever you put your attention on. So ego cost me a lot of money because for a long time I held myself down because I thought I already made it. Mm-hmm. And then when I removed maybe like an income goal and I just thought about what you can offer, everything else follows.
Randy, thank you so much for being here, brother. This has been awesome.
Yeah. I'm excited to see you come up. I know you're 20 years old. We're going to look back in 10 years. We're both going to laugh. It'll be fun.
It's going to be fun watching these, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.